welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a Morton Hakim Robinson.
Hey, everybody.
Hey,
how you doing, Mark?
Oh, I'm just no complaints, man. I'm just hoping that this episode's more than mediocre.
Oh well, we got a good film to talk about, so let's hope so. Yeah, let's see.
All right, so you've joined me before. We've talked about the final fights in the Blade movies, and when I asked you what movie you want to do next, you brought up Mad Max Fury Road. So how come this is the movie you wanted to talk about?
This movie for me is one of the great action films. Like, I think about action films, I think about The Great Escape, I think about Shogun Assassin, I think about films that I watch and I just can't take my eyes off of it. So I went to the premiere of Mad Max Fury Road before it even came to the theaters. And I'll tell you, I was blown away by this film. And just watched it knowing that, because I could tell most of this stuff was real, practical, and then come to find out 80 to 90% of this film is practical. So for me, I mean, as a director, right, and I know how hard it is just to shoot dialogue scenes, just to shoot two people sitting at a table talking, like to get something authentic. The stuff that George Miller did in this film, I'm just kind of speechless. So, when we started talking about films that we can talk about, films that are going to really help other people understand what filmmaking is. I mean, he went back to the essence. So for me, it was no contest in what the next one was going to be. So Fury Road was it for me.
And you picked, so I love to do my research. And so I'm on probably this is almost maybe episode 300 of the MFF podcast. And I don't think I've ever found a movie with just more research. There's articles with the visual effects, about the production design, about the special effects, about the long build up to this. The New York Times just released an excellent oral history of the making of this film. I mean, there is so much to read. I mean, this is an action film that was nominated for 10 Academy Awards, and it won for editing, costume, makeup, sound editing, sound mixing, production design. You and I taught at a college. We taught film. And I remember you taught sound design, and some of your students were talking about how you showed this to them. I mean, imagine doing the sound editing or sound mixing on this movie. It sounds beautiful, but how tough would that be?
Man, this film has when you talk about sound for film, what you're trying to do is you're trying to immerse the audience even deeper into the film with sound. And what they did with this film is just, I mean, like I said, when I think about the film, I'm almost speechless, but it really goes into the essence of what sound design is for, and with this film, like you said, there's so much history on this film. This film was supposed to have been done in 2003, I believe, with Mel Gibson doing Passion of Christ, and then the problems that he was having, they had to push it back. And George Miller doing, I think, with Happy Feet and Babe, the other animated child film. Everything about this film, you talked about editing. His wife edited this film. I
love that. I love what he had to say about her. They asked when she asked why he thought she should take on the project, as she had never edited an action film before. Miller replied, "Because if a guy did it, it would look like every other action movie." And so Margaret Sixel, the editor, she had hundreds of hours of 3-4 second shots, man. And I loved reading about the editing process on this. Like, that's an episode in itself. It really, this is Mad Max Fury Road could be a 20-part series, hour-long episodes. It really could, easily.
It could.
And so we got to condense it down to whatever we do here. No, sorry to jump in on you there, but I love what he had to say. And you know what's interesting too is the way that he edited this. He wanted everyone in frame he was very conscious of the audience's eye. So whenever they transition into something else, he wanted it to be in the same spot where the audience's eyes just were. So this is one of those action movies where sometimes you watch action films and you're like, I have no idea what's going on. Every almost action moment in this makes sense. You have the polecats, the cars, the doors, the wounds, the various cars chasing each other, the cars slowing down things, this, that, and the other. But it makes sense.
But here's the interesting thing. That's how I cut you off. But here's the interesting thing. George Miller storyboarded this before it was even a script.
Okay.
So So they had 3,500 panels of
Wow.
storyboards. Okay, so for him to do that much detail into the film before it was even written, so just like you said, every single shot was on purpose. And that's why, as a director, when I watch this film and I'm watching every single frame, I'm just wondering how. I mean, they were at a premiere with Robert Rodriguez, and he got up and asked George Miller, "How did you do that?"
Yes. Yep.
Like, how did you film this? Because even he knew that's not green screen.
Mm-hmm.
That's not CGI. That's real. So.
And Soderbergh said, I don't know how they're still not shooting it and how no one, everyone survived, which made me laugh.
Right.
Soderbergh moves notoriously quick, and he wondered how fast. Why aren't they still shooting this from a director who moves fast? And, this made AV Club's best movie of the 2010s. It was nominated for Best Picture. Okay. They went to Namibia, and they were out there for 9 months. Can you imagine the tent city they built? They had over 1,000 crew members in Namibia. I would love to see the tent city and truck city they built out there, right?
Yeah, like a city in its own.
And this movie would have been very stressful to work on. But just imagine how much downtime there was, too. Just getting the various shots. We'd be drinking a lot of coffee.
Oh, it'd be one of them things where you get as much downtime as you get uptime. So you're on set and you're standing around waiting for something to happen, and you know it's gonna happen, but you never know. And then they had sandstorms to deal with. They had the sand getting into the intake of the engines and disabling the vehicles, and
it's just every problem that arose. And they wanted to shoot in Australia, but all the rains came down, and then a normal barren area became very green and lush because of all the rains.
Mm-hmm.
And then they didn't even have the bookending scene at the Citadel. They had to go back for reshoots to do that.
That I didn't know.
Yeah, so they had the entire film. What they had was just the chase sequence. They did not have the Citadel. And so that scene at the end and some of the scenes in the beginning when you witness everything that's going on there, they had to go back
when he's giving the community the water.
Yeah, so when he's given the water and when he is Mad Max is running around being chased by the war boys, right. And at the end when they're being lifted up, and also they didn't have that. They had to go back for reshoots. And the studio, they were ready to just throw everyone out of the editing bay. They wanted to do it on their own. They were so sick of this movie. And then they saw the cut, and they're like, okay, you guys get your beginning and end. And then they reshot it. So this was, I was reading this article from the New York Times, really interesting read, an oral history. And in the oral history, they talked about how hard it was because George had his storyboards. And Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron were really at each other's throats because they were in cars together in 100-degree weather all the time without a script and not really knowing what they were doing. And
they had a problem with Miller.
And a lot of people bring that up like that's something major. But let's see you in the desert with someone for 9 months in the same situation. I know hindsight's 20/20, and they both look back at it saying they could have done bigger things. But you're in the desert for 9 months. You're supposed to be there for 5 months, and you don't. And Miller admitted that he was more worried about the safety of his stunts and his shots than his actors.
Mm-hmm.
But that's only natural. Like you and I, we did a day shoot. Remember that? We shot for 1 day with all of our students, and people were getting tired and frustrated.
Right. So just imagine 9 months. So that brings me to Coppola, Heart of Darkness with Apocalypse Now.
Oh gosh.
So you're talking about over a year to make a movie. The lead character having a heart attack or getting a heart attack while filming. So just for the listeners to know, when you're making a film, it's very intense, right? Very intense. And then when you have A-listers working with an A-list director, that's basically, if y'all don't know the history of George Miller, he used to be a surgeon. He was a doctor. So he's very thorough in what he's doing. And he's not going to let the A-listers, they are players in the film. So they have to trust. That's about actors trusting the director, but the director trusting the actors as well. So that whole relationship right there, and like you said, 9 months of sand. I think I would have had a fight or two myself, And Hardy had to get up at Cannes and apologize to George Miller, for being so difficult, But he's not the only actor that's difficult on set, That's a commonality in filmmaking.
Zoe Kravitz had something to say. Toast. I love her character in this movie. Toast. She's a badass. But I liked what she had to say about it in that she said that Tom would really go at George, but Tom was kind of number one on the call list, so maybe he was just pissed off about the general lack of everything. And so towards the actors and being stuffed in cars, and I mean the takes in this movie are 3-4 seconds, so where am I in character during this? But she also said that Tom went at George, and it was kind of sad to see, but she also said that she understood why Tom was doing it. We don't have much time on this earth, and they made a Stone Cold classic, but this is also 9 months of their life.
Right.
And who knows how much longer with pre-production. So I guess all these articles I'm reading about the frustration, it's like, you guys, the people writing these articles have never been on film sets before. I mean,
right.
To me, the fact that this movie got made and it came out the way it did is almost a miracle to me. I mean, they got the shots. I mean, they had hundreds of hours to edit. They got enough footage. They did it. They blew up stuff. They flipped everything. But I guess I get a little annoyed at all these people bringing up the arguments on set because, of course, there would be. I know I've said that 8 times, but you know how it goes, man. You shoot films. Like, people get frustrated on set. It's a heightened atmosphere.
So as you said, when you get critics that are not filmmakers, right, and they don't understand this, I mean, you wouldn't write an article about a person arguing in a house with their kids, or it's because you become a family on set, and you're gonna have disagreements. But the difference between being at home and being on set, time is money.
Yes.
And if we're arguing, and now you could just sit here and look at the set that they had and the landscape and where they were. They didn't have time to just sit around and just shoot the breeze. We got to shoot. We're losing daylight. How much are we going to get right now? So just like you said, it's a miracle this film got made. This film, as far as I'm concerned, there are blessings in film, in history. You can look at some films and look at cast and say, wow, they got a great cast and the things that they did. John Seal, the cinematographer for the film.
Oh, yeah.
He's done a few projects. He's done The Talented Mr. Well, he wasn't cinematographer for The Talented Mr. Ripley. I think he was a camera. But he did The Tourist. He did Spanglish. He did Cold Mountain. He did one of the Harry Potters.
An English Patient. He won the Oscar for that.
English Patient, yes.
And let's not forget the BMX Bandits.
Okay. All right, let's talk.
Early Nicole Kidman movie. And he also did the Hitcher with Rutger Hauer too. That's why that movie looks so good.
Right. Now that was a HBO production. That was a very good instrument for HBO when HBO was like making films. I think that was one of their better first films. The Hitcher.
And I gotta tell you something cool. Since you love your camera, you have a great camera. I love what they shot on this. So Seal came out of retirement to shoot the film, and he had 6 ARRI Alexa pluses, 4 Alexa MS, and then several Canon EOS 5Ds. You
know what those were for, right?
Yeah, kaboom.
Yeah, those were for the things they knew they were gonna blow up for the Cirque du Soleil
polecat
stunt people, the pole actors, right? So they really did their research as far as what they were gonna get out of the environment. And
he also had Blackmagic cinema cameras, dude, that were strapped to the heads of actors. And for the final scene where the rig flips and the doof warrior comes flying at the screen, they had a phantom camera shooting 2,000 frames per second.
Right, yeah. I seen that in the behind the scenes. How they shot that?
How much fun? Okay, we're out there for 9 months, but we have all this stuff, and we're cameramen just strapped to the head. Like, we get to blow up 5Ds.
Right.
how much fun would
Right.
that be, man?
So we talk about the actors not enjoying, what was going on. The crew had a ball, I'm sure. The crew had a ball. So, that's that give and take. The actors are getting paid more than the crew, but the crew is having a really good time shooting this film.
What'd you do yesterday? I blew up 12 5Ds. Right? Oh, man, I love. And also, another thing that I love about this movie is, so I've been covering some interesting films lately, and I know this is going to be a really weird segue for me, but movies like Back to the Future, where everything ties together, or Tremors, which I'm going to say it, everything ties together.
Wait, how many Tremors were there?
Not enough. I love them all. But so in the beginning, Kevin Bacon is peeing off a cliff. That's the same cliff that the graboid flies out at the end. Everything in that movie is set up in the beginning. Okay. The fridge, the everything's set up. I love it. But this movie, it starts with Mad Max getting captured, right? And then you learn he's a universal blood donor, which comes in handy later. And then you have a very long chase scene. And then they go back to the Citadel.
Right.
Don't
forget the sandstorm.
Yeah, the sandstorm, but just the economy of that's a brilliant way to get all those people off their butts. The economy of the script. We start at the Citadel and we end at the Citadel. We have the universal donor. We have the green place that doesn't exist anymore, but there still are seeds, and there are still those ladies who come back and help, and they're badasses, by the way. I love all those ladies, and it's just they go back and forth. That's the movie, and that's simplicity right there. What I'm saying is, but I love movies that the raid, right? They have to fight their way to the top. I think once you have that simple story, I think you can really build everything else around it. I love just the economy of the script in this. I love that, like the little moments when Immortan Joe runs into the home of his wives. He just screams out "Splendid" because that's the one he loves the most. And I love you have Capable. You have the different versions of Cheeto the Fragile. And at the end, Cheeto actually helps save. She's always the weak one, but at the end she becomes less fragile. And she uses her fragility to have Rictus help her. And it's just everything is so thought out. It gives me goosebumps talking about just the. And that's why I love this, and I love it when you can take pardon me for saying this, but at its core, let's in air quotes, a simple story, and then you can fill it with so much depth.
Right.
And a little bit of it is the ABC structure. Universal donor, he gives her blood at the end. It's just everything comes back.
Look, setup and payoff was done beautifully in this film. Minimal dialogue. I think that there was 51 lines for Max, maybe. Minimal dialogue. It's one of those films where, as you said, back to the essence, where it's supposed to be seen and not said. And that's what this film was all about. It was all about the visual. That's what it was about. And then with it being shot the way that it was, I think Miller said he didn't want this to look like the rest of the post-apocalyptic films. He wanted color. Yes. He wanted, because people at that time in that environment, they would cherish the beautiful because they didn't have, so this film just so much about this film was great. And then with it being nominated. So this was the second film in history to be a sequel, but to be nominated. And the predecessors weren't. Toy Story 3 was the only franchise. Well, Toy Story 3 was the only film in the franchise nominated. The first two weren't.
Wow.
So this is an epic moment for me for cinema, Fury Road.
It elevated the action genre. I think there are certain times when certain films can be elevated. I mean, maybe 89 with Burton's Batman. And then, what do you think, 2008, The Dark Knight, with all the Oscar nominations for Heath Ledger?
Yeah.
I think Mad Max is a big step up. I mean, Great Escape, for sure.
Right.
I think there are times when action movies can be taken seriously. And I think more action movies should be nominated for Best Picture. I mean, there's so many brilliant films out there that just don't get nominated because they're action. But no, this is a big moment, the 10 nominations for this. I mean, we're such big fans of this, but what is something that someone who does not like it, what could they say? What are some faults with this?
Too much action.
Yeah.
I mean, because it starts out, the opening scene is Max standing there. he eats he eats a lizard, and then he's chased. The icon. Now this is how I knew this was going to be a great film. The Mad Max car is an iconic vehicle, right? So iconic. If you watch Ready Player One, it's one of the vehicles that's going after the keys at the beginning for that film. That this iconic car in the film gets turned over and destroyed. Now, well, not destroyed because they actually fixed it and used it again, but it's destroyed in the opening scene of the film.
I'm gonna blow up your car. We're going somewhere new.
So something bad about this film, like I said, too much action, not enough dialogue, but it's all the things that we want to see in a film. We want to see a lot of action, but it needs to make sense. It doesn't need to be, I mean, there are films, and I won't mention the films, but there are films out there that just put action in just to keep your attention, but it's for nothing. It means nothing. It's not toward a goal, right? So everything in this film was toward a goal that had a purpose. Every single shot, there was a purpose toward the film. So, I mean, the goal for the protagonist. And the antagonist in the film, the interesting thing, Immortan Joe, is played by Hugh Keys-Byrne. He was the actual bad guy in the first Mad Max in 79.
Toe Cutter?
Was it Toe Cutter?
Wait, is he Toe Cutter? People are going to kill
I
me.
don't think
No, you're right. No.
Back to 79.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
He was no bad guy.
I love that character. And this is, I guess you're right about too much action. But I think Margaret Sixel was aware of that too, because she said that they did screenings where the audiences were exhausted by the action. So that scene where they're being dragged, at the final chase scene, they get these harpoons shot into the gas tank to slow them down. Yeah. That was a much longer sequence. There were sequences that were much, 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 much longer. And she cut it down while being conscious of not hacking the movie apart. And so she said that was real. She said that there was too much action in it.
Yeah.
And then they said that audiences were mad that the finale, everyone was building towards this finale having a gigantic action scene, when in actuality Furiosa and her crew are taken up to be the new leaders and they give water.
Right.
People were expecting a battle then, and it didn't happen.
More?
And so people were exhausted by the action, and then they were annoyed that there wasn't a bigger scene at the end.
Makes no sense.
And so they had to throw in a few lines about, there'll be no one defending it. That's why we can go back and take it. So they had to include those lines.
Oh, okay.
To do that. And so I thought that was a really interesting thing. But no, I think you're right. But I guess maybe people shy away from the sci-fi. They think it's another action movie. But no, I was trying to just not gush over it. But I have another thing to gush about.
What's that?
You know how I know a movie's good? This is my theory.
I'm listening.
When you call, when you don't, Tom Cruise was so good in that movie. No, when you say Furiosa, oh man, Furiosa's a badass. Man, Rictus, holy crap, Immortan Joe, Max. Like when you know I know Mad Max we know, but when you know the characters' names, when you leave the theater and you say, oh, that character was so great. When you speak in terms of a movie, like when you talk about Jaws, Quint, Brody, Hooper, when you are able to, I think the classics are the movies, at least for me, man, like Nux in this movie, played by Nicholas Hoult. You never go Nicholas Hoult, you go Nux.
Right.
Because he's like, I think the best movies have characters' names you can remember. And I know that's basic, but like in the future, just when you're leaving a theater, be like, do I remember the characters' names? And but I remember all theirs. Even after the first time talking about this, I remember them all.
But that's good writing. And there was an article that stated that Miller only wanted to hear the characters' first names, not their last names, if you even heard their name at all. Because some of them, you didn't hear their name, you only seen their name in the credits. And they weren't said a lot, but they were said enough because you got protagonists, you got antagonists, you got supporting cast. You say their names at the right time, they're gonna be remembered. So as you said, Nux was in the film at the right moments. His arc was great because he went from antagonist to protagonist. He went from the dark side, and he transitioned. His transition was great. His not to spoil it, but I don't want to spoil it for those that haven't seen the film.
No, spoil it. They've all watched it. Let's do it.
But Nux going out, he went out saving everybody. He went out, and the film started with him chasing everybody to get the wives back. you know? So that transition, and even with Max, and Max didn't have a lot to say, and we all know Max's arc in the film, but when you watch it, we all get a sense of Max's humanity, you know, a sense in the ghost that he keeps seeing, you know, the child, you know, a metaphor for his daughter.
Yeah.
You know, from the first one, you know, the continuous metaphors dropped throughout the film. It's just a great film. And what I wanted to say about the action, there are a lot of films with action, but I think Fury Road, if you took the opening scene for Saving Private Ryan and you kind of, take that and you make a story out of that. Like, there was a lot of action. That opening scene for Saving Private Ryan, you know, I think about excellent execution in filmmaking. That's one of them. It's not Fury Road. Private Ryan is a beast as well.
Oh, that opening scene. And what I like about that opening scene with Saving Private Ryan is there's a goal to it. And if you think about Mad Max, he gets captured, you have that scene. And then when Furiosa goes rogue, they get attacked by the Spike people. Beautifully, beautiful production design, by the way, on those vehicles. Yes. But when you watch that scene, they try to spike the tires, but the tires are blocked. You learn a lot through those action scenes. Right? So then you have that. Then you have the sandstorm that clears the way for everybody. Then you have the chase through the canyon because they drop the rocks. And then you have the scene where Rose Huntington Whiteley dies, and that's why the car crashes. The action scenes, I think, were written they were written to make sense, not just obligatory. Okay, we need a fight scene here. And like you just said, like, each action scene furthers the story. And I know we're applauding it for doing probably what it should, but not many action movies do that.
No, not at all. Every scene moved the story forward. Every scene. And matter of fact, as you said, it moved the story forward. And as they were going, Max went and chased them down and said, no, we got to go back to the Citadel.
Yeah.
The only way we're going to achieve this goal, we have to go back. So now, basically, Max is saying, we're going back into the action. All right. You guys want to drive out into we're going to go right back same way we came, which was great. Dialogue was great. Story, phenomenal.
And I guess I forgot to mention this too, but in the beginning, we learned about the blood banks, and we learned that he's a universal donor, but he escapes. And I think the importance of that scene is we see the innards of the Citadel. We see the war boys repairing cars. We see the different caverns, the water, that they have water there.
Harvest.
Right?
Yeah, water, the harvest, the green, the vegetation they had.
And when he jumps out and gets on that hook, we realize how high up they are. We realize that there's the green, the lush. We get to see the entire world during that scene. So that's another thing of, that's not even it's not gratuitous. We learn about the world through the chase scene. Right.
The environment, the whole environment setup was with Chase and Max.
And now we know about the Citadel, and you don't have to tell us. I tell you, man, sometimes it's inevitable in film. It really is. But I love being shown and not being told.
Right.
I just loved being shown in this movie. And I think that's another reason why it's so good. It's just, you get to experience it. And I think it's another movie where George Miller, do you think his work on Happy Feet, he won an Academy Award for that because that won Best Animated Feature, with the amount of storyboarding and the amount of the process that he went through of seeing each frame in an animated film. So he did two of those. Do you think Happy Feet helped Mad Max become the movie it was just by those storyboards and the detail that he went through?
Well, I'll say this. I storyboard my films. I like storyboarding. I started drawing when I was little, so I'm big into storyboarding. When I watch Mad Max and Road Warrior, and even the third one with Thunderdome, right? They're all very good films, very good action films. You can tell if you watch the three, George Miller, he has his signature. He's a master. So my definition of a master is when you watch his film, you know who directed this film. You know it's a George Miller production. Now, when you watch Happy Feet, I didn't know it was George Miller. You can't tell that it's George Miller. But the attention to detail, and with animation, you have to storyboard. With animation, you have to go through the phases of storyboarding, previs until you get up to a decent render of the animatics, and then you can get into full animatics. So for me, it had to help. as a director, every film helps you for the next film. So when you watch Road Warrior, which Road Warrior was an excellent action film, excellent, it's up there. I think Fury Road, outdid Road Warrior.
Oh,
in my
for sure.
In my opinion. So I would think the storyboarding, I think his 3,500 panels of storyboarding, and they said it actually added up to about that much as far as the shots in the film. They said it's about the same number. So yeah, it would have to. And that's anybody that's listening that wants to be a filmmaker, you get a chance to storyboard, and they don't have to be elaborate. They don't have to look like Ridley Scott's storyboard. Or, they can be, Scorsese, he storyboards, and his storyboards they're almost like stick figures. But to understand, you're taking the words on the page and that's the first opportunity you have to bring it off the page. They're not words anymore. You can actually see, So when you look at and I was showing some of the students at one time, the storyboards for Fury Road. I mean, they were pretty good. They're pretty good detail. They're not great, but they're good. They're good enough to get a good idea on where the cars should be. As you said, Max should be center framed. I remember hearing that Miller was saying, make sure the crosshairs are on the nose. That's where they need to be. They were shooting anamorphic. So that's what they needed, So, yeah, storyboarding is good. It's a part of filmmaking. It's a part of the process. But if you look at the film, proof is in the pudding right there.
And like you said, time is money. If you're an independent filmmaker or you're the biggest filmmaker on the planet, Ridley Scott moves very fast. And the reason these guys can move very fast is because you get on set, you put up a board, and you have a clipping of every single storyboard. These are the shots we need today. So you don't have people standing around on set going, what are we doing? Look at the board. You have the director of photography, the grip, the gaffer, the key grip. They disseminate that information to their crew, and you can knock that out. That alleviates questioning, that alleviates issues. It creates more confidence in the daily sets. Now, the Mad Max Fury Road set, people were pretty confused, but they still got all the shots they wanted because of the storyboards.
Right.
And also, it's free, man. Like, why would you not storyboard?
Look, this is what I was taught. Great director Jack Perez, right? He taught me. He was one of my teachers. Storyboard, you go in there with a plan. It's like if you go into a situation without a plan, you only can go but so high. But if you have a plan, you have a storyboard, and you have a shot, you have some type of plan going into the game, you're going to go higher now, So if you go in thinking because there are directors that go in there and they direct on the fly. Okay, do this, do that. They somewhat limit themselves. And as you said, it's free, but it's a form of, I don't want to say laziness, because that's what it could be. You don't really want to storyboard it because it takes time to storyboard. Even if you're doing stick figures, you got to sit here and think about. And if you go on set with your storyboards, the storyboards you don't have to follow in extreme detail. They're just a start. They give you an idea on where you can start from, and then you can go higher. So I would say to everybody, if you can storyboard, like I said, Fury Road is an example. It's something I think that film students should watch to understand what storyboarding, what action films, what visually telling the story is about without dialogue, Max had a couple of, he didn't even say his name until the third act. And that gives you an idea on how iconic Max is, the environment, the post-apocalyptic environment. Why do you need to know my name? It's not important. You know what I'm saying? Like, how is my name important to you right now?
No, that's a great point. And I guess also with storyboards too is Soderbergh doesn't use storyboards. So if someone's like, well, Soderbergh doesn't, but you're like, yeah, but that's Soderbergh.
Right.
That's Soderbergh.
Right. There are some people that I say get a pass because if you look at their past work, you can't question what they're doing.
Exactly.
And they probably started storyboarding, but now that they're so experienced in the craft, there might be times they don't need storyboards, but they're going to get something better out of it than a newbie that wants to say, well, Soderbergh does it, I'm not going to. And you don't have you don't have any experience, any past pieces to actually show us that you know what you're doing. So no, I say really hone in on your craft. Take advantage of every element there is about filmmaking to tell your story before you start writing dialogue or before you introduce dialogue. There's so many things in Fury Road: the lighting, the costume, the environment, the vehicles, all of that stuff told the story before they said anything. The wives. Okay, so you got the wives. Here's an example. You got wives. You got most of these women, when you see them in other films, they're like eye candy. Not saying that they're not good actresses or good models, but they're eye candy. George Miller put them in these scenes and they're dingy and dirty and fighting and they're going through the elements just like everyone else. Not putting them there for everybody just to see an attractive female, but they had a purpose, you know?
Absolutely. And they all become strong in their own ways, and you learn about them in their own ways. And also, too, I think, I know we have the initial sight gag of Max covered in dirt, not drinking anything, with a muzzle on his face, and seeing these women draped in silken robes shooting each other with water. I think it's more of a gag, like it's a visual gag played on that. But I think the introduction of these wives into another smart thing that happens is you have the introduction of these wives in there, and they've been sheltered. They don't know this world. And then you have Furiosa, who was part of that world and isn't anymore because she seems to have suffered greatly. You have Max, who is this loner who lives out in the world. And then you have Nux, who's one of the war boys. So having all these different groups together, you can have some expository dialogue, or you can learn more about them because they're clashing with each other. So these wives, you learn, like Toast the Knowing, played by Zoe Kravitz, she knows how to do the gun. But then you have Riley Keough, who shows immense empathy towards Nux. And then you have the Dag, played by Abby Lee. There's a scene where she walks up to a woman, and the woman's like, I kill everybody I see. And she's like, oh, I thought you'd be better than that. But that's not the world. But I think it's interesting having these sheltered people in finally meeting the world.
Right.
And I really like that. So I dug how Splendid kicked Nux out of the car. But later on, you had Riley Keough capable, showing immense empathy. So I don't know. I thought it was cool the way that these women were played out. And at the end, you have all the badass ladies on the motorcycles, just straight shooting people and wiping people out. And I mean,
the last stand for them.
I thought it was just so cool. And the Valkyrie, played by Megan Gale, she's the one that was bait during the scene where she comes down and she was used as bait. You know, she was cast as Wonder Woman in George Miller's Justice League, and everybody was in Australia getting ready to shoot. They had the storyboards. Everybody was in Australia. One guy was about to get on a flight to go start filming, and the movie was canceled. So if you haven't read about George Miller's Justice League, do that now, because the Valkyrie was going to be Wonder Woman. So he brought her into this, and she was I don't know. You're right. I hate it sometimes when really excellent characters, or just like actresses or actors, I guess, like Scarlett Johansson in the Marvel movies. I think she's wasted. And I like that there's an introduction to them, and you learn more about the world through them, and you see their evolution. So they're not treated as that. And I think Charlize and all the actresses speak about that, and how there is a nice feminist slant to it, which is refreshing, man. Like, I want more of this.
Listen, this is a great feminist film. And you know, when we talk about action, we're talking about the guys. You know, this is supposed to be a guy film, but if you really look at the B story of this film, this is a woman's film.
Yes.
This is Max and Nux saving the females of humanity, because that's what the wives were. The wives were the essence of the earth. What Immortan Joe was basically trying to bring pure life back to this world.
Yep.
So if you sit here and you look at what this movie is about, people say Mad Max. So me and my wife went to go see this film, right? If you really look at it, this was more for her than for me. You know, when we're talking about saving humanity, we're talking about saving the females. So this film, you know, and the women in the film, they were the B story. So, you know, we got the A story of Max, you know, post-apocalyptic, you know, he's the hero, but who is he saving? So,
and Furiosa's the one that kicked it off. In the end, Furiosa saves Max. She catches his foot in a great scene at the end. Like, she and Max are equals on every level.
Oh, I mean, if you sit here and think about it, that scene that you mentioned where she's holding Max up, she's actually stabbed in her lungs. Yeah. You know, so, and she's still holding this man up, you know? So, yeah, this was, if you sit here and think about it, I'll say it right now. Mad Max Fury Road is a film about women, the strength of women, and if you look at it from that, and if you look at it, Max, when he leaves, what does he do? He disappears into the crowd. Furioso is on high. This is not a Mad Max film. This is really, and then, the prequel, they greenlit Furioso. So whenever that's going to come out, for everybody that didn't know, they're going to do a spinoff of this for Furioso. So
they're talking a prequel, which I don't know. Listen, here's the deal. When they arise to the top of that citadel, they're down the majority of the war boys. They're still Gastown. They're still the buzzards. They're still the motorcycle guys. This citadel is there's like many people's for the taking at the moment. So I would love to have a Charlize sequel, but I guess he's going the prequel route. But George Miller's out there. He kind of goes to his own beat. I don't see him, what's the word, doing something predictable. So I guess the prequel seems natural to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a filmmaker where, like you said, he's doing it at his pace. So if you sit here and think about it, Happy Feet, total opposite in mechanics as far as the Road Warrior is concerned, right? As far as Mad Max is concerned. So, I think it's great to be able to take your time to actually really build something. They say like film, when you make a film, it's like your child. You should know this thing in and out. You should know everything about the film, which is going to make it better. So when he comes out with something, you can expect it should be good. It should be great. I can't speak for everybody, but I like his work ethic.
It's like a Wes Anderson film or a David Fincher film. Or a Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
Yeah.
They probably do one every 3, 4, 5 years. But when it does come out, the script is right. The look is right. The cast is right. So you have faith in these guys for doing this. Yeah, and you're right. I think Miller's definitely one of those guys for sure. Hey, so how about this? Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk more Mad Max Fury Road. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Movies, Films, and Flicks. And Hakim, is there a better character than the Doof Warrior that's come out in the last 10 years?
The Doof who?
The Doof Warrior, the guitarist who plays the flamethrower guitar.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. So he said the guitar weighed 150 pounds. Is shot out real fire. I think that that's a pretty good character. I mean, visually, and just what he was able to bring, almost like bringing, there's a term that we use in filmmaking, diegetic and non-diegetic. So he basically was the score for the film in transit. He was the theme music for Martin through the whole film.
How would you want to be a drummer on that big vehicle? Is that your job?
I mean, that's George Miller's mind, man. If you think about this guy's mind and the things that he comes up with, he reminds me of Lucas a little bit, George Lucas, on how, with Star Wars and all the different characters, the iconic characters that are in the Star Wars world. But then you talk about Mad Max, you got some iconic characters going back to Road Warrior, even to Thunderdome. These iconic, and just as you said, you remember these characters' names. So that's another thing with good filmmaking, good writing, good directing, that you're creating an image that's lasting. That's a lasting image.
And I also like a few of the things. There's a couple characters I find are very interesting. So in the Citadel, there are these executioner type looking men. They're super burly executioners. So are they okay? Who are they? The security guards? They're not obviously. They are not the war boys. They are the what's the word? They are just the security. Who are these guys? The ones with the black masks.
If they're security, they didn't do a good job at the end. When Furioso showed up, they just stood there and watched. But and Erictus was a sibling. Yeah. He wasn't just big, and he wasn't just there to be there. He just wasn't security. He was actually a son. So, and then, we ain't talking about that in the film when one of the wives gets run over, Splendid.
Oh, yeah.
And she gets killed, and then they perform surgery and they pull out the dead child. And they have the umbilical cord, and he says, I had a baby brother.
Oh, yeah.
He was perfect in every way.
He starts shooting that giant gun. How sassy the doctor, they called him the organic mechanic. And how he was saucy though. He was giving to Morton Joe some comments.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, He's like
Yeah.
another month and you would have had a kid. Like he was being he's like your blondie here is just barely breathing. Do you think he got away with that because he's the doctor?
I think partly because he's a doctor and partly because Morton had a lot going on. Because
Yeah.
the other character was a little, what was the guy? The eater?
Yeah.
The guy that was, yeah. So he actually told him, I'm going after them. The people eater. Morton said, wait. He says, no, I'm going to go after them. You sit here and wait. I'll go. So I think a couple of them, I had permission to be a little sassy with Morton. So yeah, I noticed that too. There's some subtext.
Yeah.
There's some subtext to that. Yeah.
And I also read that the Bullet Farmer. Okay, there's a backstory for all these guys. Bullet Farmer and Morton Joe were the ones that took over the area and built it up, and then he got control of the Bullet area, which was a lead mine. That's the backstory to all of it. So yeah, he's sassy. He takes off. Oh, there's one thing we didn't talk about was the day for night scenes. So obviously you're not going to shoot at night in Namibia. There's no way.
Right.
It's impossible. So they shot during the day, and they overexposed. Like they really they opened it up. They didn't just go one over. They really, like, for the CGI, they didn't want to clip, but they overexposed during the day. And John Seal was like, no, we're not doing that. That's stupid. And then they did it, and it looked cool. I mean, this is good looking day for night, I would say.
Oh yeah. And for people that have seen the film, this is the scene where they have the tanker and they're trying to get away from the Bullet Farmer. And this is when Furioso blinds him and they hook the cable up to the tree. But the whole scene is kind of has a bluish hue, right? Which takes them into night, into night, which is great. I think that plan that they had worked. It worked great for me for the film,
I just love that they thought outside the box and really overexposed the footage. And they turned it up. And I also thought it was really interesting. There's little nuggets in this. And you brought up George Lucas, who, like, if you think about Return of the Jedi, when the Rancor is killed, his trainer starts crying. And then his trainer is greeted by his friend, and his friend starts saying, it's okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
In this scene, you have the vulture bird-looking people on stilts walking through this weird water sludge. You just have these really interesting buzzards, and then you have different types of people who exist in this world, but you only see glimpses of them. And I really sort of like that, too, about it. And another random thing is I love all the downtime. Because think about all the downtime in this world. You can't really be riding all the time because you'll need gasoline. So a lot of it's just waiting around. And I liked
for something to happen or to find something and to find something you need. Yeah.
I like the downtime. I like the little characters. But no, I guess I'm going back to I jump all over the place. But the day for night, I thought it was really. I mean, how much that'd be a nightmare. Imagine the temperature drop out there. Imagine the inclement weather. And it's just another case of I've seen bad day for night. I really have, but this was not a case of that. And it's hyper stylized. I mean, the color grading in this movie, so it fits right in. You don't have normal cinematography and then day for night. You have a very hyper stylized yellow, bright, and then you have that. So it works. Right. It works for this world.
Yeah, it works. And even in that scene, Furioso is basically, I mean, that was that. And I feel like that scene was the culmination of Furioso and Max, because Furioso blinds the Bullet Farmer, but they're still coming. So Max goes out there and kills all of them. He comes back, and then this is when Furioso and Max kind of have a heart-to-heart, and you understand that Furioso wants him around. So yeah, I think that was a good turning point with the visuals and the content as well for the film.
I like when Furiosa, she says, like, are you bloody? And she says, I think that's their blood. So he goes out and kills those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was neat. And I also like the moment where they're down to one bullet. And this, okay, I'm not praising Tom Hardy for doing this, but I like it when actors are unselfish in roles. So he's down to one bullet, and he hands the gun to Furiosa. She rests it on his shoulder, and she takes the shot and gets the kill.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unselfish move with the actors. It adds depth to each of them, and there's no word, well, except for "Don't breathe." But in that moment, you learn a lot about them. He trusts her, and then she trusts him. It's a really neat moment.
And they're flawed characters. Both of them are flawed, you know? And so much so, the Max knew that he couldn't do what Furioso can do. The same thing with driving a tanker. When he sits in a tanker and he's about to leave, and they say, look, they're coming. You're either going to let me drive. He said, no, we'll wait. We'll sit here and wait. You know what I'm saying? So the depth, the dimensions of these characters are great.
One thing that bothers me, though, is in the beginning, Charlize Theron, the Furiosa, she takes out the War Boys with her on basically a mission where they're all going to die. So these are guys who... I mean, also, one thing George Miller said, he wanted these guys to have glee. So when they die, they cherish it. It's a really interesting move. Witness Me. I mean, some of the most iconic slow-motion moves, Witness Me, and that guy gets shot in the face, and then he dives on that buzzard car and blows it up.
Right, the poles, yeah.
They're driving through a toxic sandstorm, and what a day, what a lovely day. Like, there's so much glee to these characters, which adds a really interesting angle to them. But she gets all of those war boys killed. And so these war boys are just products of being grown up from war pups to war boys. So listen, she absolutely wants to get out there. She wants to save these wives. But I felt kind of bad for all the collateral damage of the war boys who died. But they want to die, right? So I mean, maybe it's not bad.
That was their purpose. They're soldiers. That's what they were there. That's what they were born to do. So actually, them appearing in front of the gates of Valhalla, that's what they want, right? That was their purpose, a beautiful death. So basically, you know, she was giving them what they wanted, in a sense.
They get to shine their mouths, and that's like a drug that gets them super jacked, and then they just die.
So I think George Miller said he had got that from something that they did back in war times, actually something they did actually in war times. But they didn't spray. They used something else. It was some type of drug, some type of narcotic that they used, and that's where he kind of got the reference from. So, yeah.
They went full, so Scarface ripped them off.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
And also, how cool would it have been, just as you and I, so when I was working on the film sets, I loved going on the vehicles that towed other vehicles. I loved going on the rigs that filmed. How sweet would it have been to have been on the Edge system that they put on these really badass SUVs? So they had this Edge cam on top of a crane on a very powerful vehicle, so it can accelerate quickly, and the crane can be operated from inside the car by an operator. It could go up and down and swing around 360 degrees. It's got an extension of about 20 feet, and the camera's on the end of a stabilized remote head that's operated by a camera operator inside the car. So you have the crane operator, camera operator, DP, and George Miller in a car, plus the driver. So the camera could go right up to the window and get a close-up of, say, Charlize Theron pull back and around and down to a full wide shot. How sweet would it have been to be in that cool car, man, with that camera?
That sounds like a piece of equipment you always want to have.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You want to keep. But they said that when this was done, they crushed all the cars. They destroyed all the cars.
Why?
And I would think maybe not all of them, but most of them, they said that they destroyed them. I mean, with productions, when the production, they have to dissolve everything. And most of them probably would not have worked as well anyway. Maybe they could have kept it for like a museum or something, you know, archive for the film. But it's still, at the end of the day, it's still an intellectual property. It's still a business. So
I mean, I've worked at locations where they have one of the Batmobiles just sitting there on display. That'd be sweet to see one of these.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. So you're in this world. You're one of these drivers. Which vehicle would you pick? Which vehicle would you want in this world?
Oh, okay. I was reading up on some of the names. But if I had to pick one, let me look. I'm actually have to research that one.
So,
you know what? It might be the vehicle. Might be the vehicle that what's his name? Dolph. What was that? Dolph Warrior.
The Doof Warrior?
Yeah, Doof Warrior. I think it might be that one. That one had speakers in the front and had speakers in the back. It had music playing. Maybe that one. Maybe.
Oh, and you don't have to get engaged in the action.
Right. I could see everything.
Hey.
I get a chance.
Yeah.
Because if I'm in any of the other vehicles, I'm probably going to die. You know what? No. You know what? I like Nux's car.
Oh, yeah. That thing's fast.
Yeah. Now, that was a Beetle. It looked like a Volkswagen Beetle, right? But I don't think it was, but it looked like it was. It looked like it was a Volkswagen Beetle.
And I have another question. Movies have made me to believe that motorcycle henchmen always lose. So John Wick 3, The Villainess, all these movies. And in this movie, every single motorcycle henchman or anybody on a motorcycle gets wiped out.
Oh, they're disposable.
Yeah.
They're disposable. If you're on a motorcycle, you're going to get it.
So,
you're going to get it.
If someone said, Mark, get on that motorcycle, I'm dead. Well, I guess if you're a war boy, you might want to get on the motorcycle.
Yeah, you're gonna be in Valhalla soon. But even in the Road Warrior, the famous scene where one of the guys is on a motorcycle and it flips, and they said that he actually broke his leg when that happened. So he actually turned himself into relax mode when he started spinning upside down. George Miller talks about that, on how the guy actually relaxed himself to not further his injuries when he landed.
That's smart. That's wherewithal right there.
Yeah.
And also, the VFX coordinator said that a lot of times when you have stuntmen jumping out of vehicles, they're very graceful and they know how to land, and they just know it looks graceful. So she didn't want her war boys flying all over the place to look graceful. So she tried to pattern them realistically when they went flying in the air, not like a stuntman flying in the air. So when you watch this movie and you see war boys going flying, they don't look elegant. They look just like ragdolls shot from a vehicle that just wiped out at 70 miles an hour.
So when I watched the film, I tried to see where there were moments where they were stuntmen or that it was CGI. And I think, as it said, as 80 to 90% of the film was practical, it was real. I think I only seen one occurrence where a stunt guy looked kind of, computer generated. And I believe it was with one of the motorcycle guys, or when they went into a pit. I think one of them had one of the old school cars, like something from American Graffiti, and it goes down into a hole and the spikes are sticking out of the hole and it flips. So I don't know. Even Furioso's tanker was awesome.
Oh, that thing was so cool. That's the best vehicle. And I love when Richter shoots the spear through the steering wheel, and then they clip it, and then Furiosa attaches the wrench to it. But they have to
drive the wrench, right.
I dug it. Like, what a great scene. That's what's tough about this movie is it's so good that you could almost just say and then. So I think we've dropped enough knowledge, which I'm very happy about. But I just love that. I don't know. There's just so much. Oh my gosh. I dig it. But
it's a lot. Great film.
And you know what I like is when they here's some interesting numbers for the movie. At the height of filming, there were 1,700 crew members with an average of 1,000 people on set at any one time, as 5 8x8 German military transport trucks hauled gear across 3 football-sized pitch distances 6 times over 138 days. It's crazy.
Ooh, so I would think, and I would understand why George Miller would take time in between films, because that that's a lot to deal with. I mean, just in human standards, that's a lot. You're talking about the pressures and being in the heat, the sand, and we're not even talking about just the pressures of production. Every time somebody steps in a vehicle, he's worrying if someone's going to get hurt. So every time he shoots, because there have been deaths on films all the time, car scenes, people get hurt, and if I believe, no one was hurt in this film, right?
I think he said there might have been maybe one broken leg or arm, and he was really sad about that.
Okay.
And that affected him big time.
It had to. I mean, I worry on set because safety is the most important thing on set. Anything can happen on set. And as I said, I'm not talking about a George Miller set. I'm talking about a Sidney Pollack set. You know, just dialogue or just now with what we're talking about, and the reason why Rodriguez probably got up and said, "How did you do that?" Because to have a production like this, and the worst thing that happened was somebody broke their leg or sprained their ankle, and that's it. That's a blessing.
It is a blessing.
You know, that's a blessing because every time he yells action, I'm sure his heart is in his throat, you know, hoping someone, you know, in the behind the scenes, that scene that you're talking about where the truck turns on this at the end where Nux dies, he was holding his breath in Video Village, you know, hoping that this guy, because the dummy that was on the truck turns on his head, and he actually thought that was the stunt guy.
Yeah, so he was so worried.
Yeah, he was really worried. So, you know, just big up to him, to George Miller, for giving us such a great piece of art. No one getting hurt, because that's the concern in pre-production. Because I'm sure there were a lot of films that might have had the same type of storyline as the Road Warrior, as Fury Road, and producers probably said, you know what, we can't afford it. There's no way in the world we can make this look realistic. And if we shoot it, somebody's going to die or somebody's going to get hurt. We need to scrap this production and move on to something else. Because no one, you know, when Road Warrior came out, there were a whole lot of films that came out after that kind of gave us or tried to emulate what Road Warrior was. None of them could do it. And I don't think you've noticed, since Fury Road has come out, there have been no films that actually resemble Fury Road, you know, because they can't match. They cannot match up to what he's done.
And I really appreciate the safety on here as well, like you said. So you have a movie like Resident Evil. There was a stunt woman who lost her leg because there was a mix, like she was driving a motorcycle and the crane didn't lift soon enough, the camera crane, and she lost her leg. Recently on a CW show, there was an instance with a cherry picker and lights and a PA who was standing on, like, people weren't looking out. People were either coming up with stunts that my thing is, you shouldn't do a stunt where if one thing fails, there's a chance for death. Does that make sense? Now, George Miller did that on this with the truck, but they really built a safety. The guy walked out of it. They thought long and hard about it. But you shouldn't have something where there could be a random error. Or you shouldn't have, when you're on film sets, you need to make sure that your inexperienced PAs aren't standing underneath lights on cherry pickers. And, and I don't know, watching him really gave me a lot of respect for him. But also, if you look at the IMDb page for this movie, there's 5 stunt coordinators. So normally there's a fight choreographer too in this movie. So in most films, there's 1 stunt coordinator. This one had 5. And there was the fight coordinator as well, who he worked on Jim Cotta, by the way, the guy who did Richard Norton, the fight coordinator.
Okay.
And he also did the Suicide Squad movies. But yeah, so I dig that there's 5 stunt coordinators on this movie. So they wanted safety, and they achieved it. Yeah. But that's when you do it right. You do it right.
And then you want to leave a project feeling good about it, because I don't know. I mean, I've never experienced it, and I hope I never experience it in my career as a filmmaker, that no one gets hurt or dies on set. Now, you know, scratches or bumps and bruises, that happens. But someone really getting hurt or someone dying, I mean, that can kind of take you out of the art. And I don't know if that happened with Christian Bale in the last Batman, where he said he didn't want to do anymore. But that's when a guy shot up the movie theater, just killing people. So even not in the production itself, but just something that you make, and it pushes people so far as to murdering people. You know, we don't create this art. We're not here for people to get hurt during production or even after the film is done. It's a piece of art. You know, so as you said to him there, you know, taking the time, it's all about planning. Sure, if he didn't plan as much as he did, people probably could have gotten hurt. You know, there's no way in the world when you watch this film, I'm saying to myself when I watched it, someone had to get hurt.
Have you read the excellent oral history of what happened on the Crow set that led to Brandon Lee being shot?
From what I remember, Props had the gun. They were about to shoot. Something happened. Props took the gun back, returned it, and I don't know. What did you hear?
So it was one guy who was overworked, and he was just working 20 hours around the clock. wasn't sleeping, and he just had so many bullets and guns, and he was so exhausted that a couple slipped through. Just some things slipped through because he was so overworked and so tired.
But what doesn't make sense to me and what you're saying is why have live rounds on set at all?
I think it's just something slipped. I think it was in North Carolina in different studios. I'm not saying this is because of North Carolina, but I just think it was they took it for granted. They had one guy, he got too tired, he didn't expect everything. It's a good read. It's a good read about overworking your crew and the dangers that can happen.
That's a rough one, you know?
It's rough.
That's a rough one.
But man, I've been on sets where they didn't set up a camera. What do you call it when you put up? Geez Louise. When you're working on a skyscraper and you put the things up on the outside, what do you call those? Scaffolding. They had cheap scaffolding, and then that fell on some of the crew and hurt a first AD on a movie I was working on. I was working on a movie where we were in the Everglades or a TV show, and I walked into a gator hole in the ground, and I almost sunk in, and someone yelled, "Protect the camera." So the industry's not kind to people, man. So once again, that's why I like George Miller so much.
Yeah, I mean, they thinking about the equipment more than anything. The woman that passed away, Sarah, in Georgia.
Oh, that director. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
So, safety. And there you guys listening, all the films that we're talking about, anytime that I'm on set, anytime I'm dealing with crew, we always talk about safety. Everybody wants to make it home.
That's right. And that's if you're the head of it, that's your job. No, well, you know what? I've been told. I was on a big set one time, and a massive lightning storm broke out. I'm not going to tell the story. I'm still mad about it. But yeah, so also another thing about this movie, I'm going to change the topics. So I wrote a note. You're watching a good movie when you see water being wasted and it hurts. When that water is being wasted in that scene, it just broke my soul. I was like, turn it off. Don't waste water.
I thought about that too. I said, well, that's a lot of water.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I kept saying to myself, man, that's a lot of, I wonder if they're recycling the water, but that's a lot of water. And it didn't look like an effect. That looked practical as well.
Another thing I was thinking about, so she was there, Charlize Theron's character was there at the Citadel for 7,000 days, about 19 years. I guess that'd be cool to see how she became the, Imperator? Like that'd be neat, because she had a massive position in that Warboy squad.
Yeah. How she lost her arm? Did they speculate on how she lost her arm?
I don't know, but I'd love to see it. I guess, You know what? Going back in time, I guess I wouldn't mind it. That'd be pretty cool. And I also like when Flick, who is Nux's kind of nemesis and partner, when he dies, he's just happy about it. And he just gets squished. Just blows my mind, man. It's just, and also the scene where Rictus pulls up the engine at the end and Nux looks at him. You know that guy Nathan Jones fought in Pride in MMA, and he got his butt kicked. That's a 7-foot giant, and he just got beat up. Blows my mind.
Most of the big guys get beat up anyway, but yeah, he was 7 foot tall. Is he?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, huge dude. But yeah, any other things you want to cover in this film? Oh, you wanted to talk about the soundtrack, right?
Oh yeah, the soundtrack. Okay, so Junkie XL is the composer for this well put together piece, and he does a great job. If you listen to the motifs in the film, they do so much for the film.
Oh yeah.
And it's a very distinct sound. And music is important. I mean, we've been talking about the action, we've been talking about all these things, but knowing on how a score and a theme actually holds a film together. And it has to fit well. It has to sound good. It has to fit well. It has to fit the character. And the most important thing is not supposed to take you out of the story or take you out of the film. So I think he did a great job. He goes under another name called Tom Holkenborg, right? He did Terminator Dark Fate. He did Superman, Man of Steel, Alita, Battle Angel. I mean, and I think about all these scores, and they were pretty good, but just not as good as the score in Fury Road. He's actually doing Godzilla versus King Kong.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, that'll sound epic.
That's coming out. I don't know when it's coming out now, with the quarantine and COVID, but hopefully that'll give us some more of him. But if you listen to the film, and they're simple motifs that he's using, like the sounds and the chords that he's using are very simple, but they're very strong. they fit the film really well. So, I'm big on scores. Like I like music in film.
The Warriors. I love the score in The Warriors that they play about 3 times. I love that score, man.
The Warriors.
Anything by Carpenter, I dig. I dig all the Carpenter scores.
Oh yeah. Electronic. He's electronic, and that's similar to what's that? The Dorff brothers, the guys that do Stranger Things.
Yep.
Yeah. So that electronic sound that came back from like the '60s. These two brothers, I forget their names, but these two brothers actually built these instruments made out of electronics. And they're the ones that kind of spawned the electronic sound in film. And like you said, Carpenter, you got Tangerine Dream. That's another band.
I have that Sorcerer score. I have that vinyl. I love the score to Sorcerer. Okay. It's beautiful. Okay. And Near Dark.
Yeah. Which one is that?
Near Dark, Catherine Bigelow, the vampire movie with Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
I love their stuff.
Yeah.
And also, this is random, but how great is the headbutt in this movie that Furiosa delivers at the end?
Okay, so supposedly right before she delivers that headbutt, is it with Eric's character? No, it's another guy. It's the guy that played the stunt. He's a stunt coordinator.
Yep, and he was on there with him.
Right. He gives the same hiss sound that was done in the Road Warrior that was done. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where that hiss sound came from.
And then and then I also love when she goes to stab him and she misses and bonks her head. That's a good gag in there when she.
Oh yeah, it's a pretty good gag. I don't know if it fits, but it worked.
Yeah, I guess. And I also like how in every car it was a shoe size kind of thing where you test your shoe size for all the pedals and then you can lock it and keep the thing floored. It's kind of cruise control in the post-apocalyptic age. I dig it. There's so many little details. We could talk about this movie. Is there any final things you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No. Well, yeah. What I'll say is as I said, Fury Road. If you want to watch a really good film, good action film that makes sense and it was done carefully, and you can watch this film and not feel bad at the end, knowing that no one in production was really hurt making the film, and understand, what it's about. Like you were saying, show it, not say it, really using images, juxtaposition to tell your story. Great film. And then, like you said, George Miller's wife edited the film. That's another great thing. So yeah, just a good all around film, action film nominated, like you said, 10 Academy Awards. That's an accomplishment, everybody. Know that that's an accomplishment. Know that there are a whole lot of filmmakers out here that have made action films, pretty good action films, but none nominated. Not for 10 Academy Awards. No.
So good.
So, great film.
So
great film.
What are we doing next?
What did we say? What's next?
Well, you had some drive-in movies. You said the Mad Maxes, 7-Ups, Bullet, 7-Up,
Bullet. I mean, even in the second Matrix film, the drive scene that even though that was CGI and the other films we're talking about are actually practical.
They built that highway.
Yeah. I mean, but it was a good scene.
I love it.
That was a great car scene. So I don't know, maybe we'll go cars, I don't know, Bullet or 7-Ups or, we'll get something.
I like Bullet, man. I like that idea.
You like Bullet? I think so. Let's talk about Bullet.
Right.
I mean, we don't hear enough about Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen did a lot for the film industry. He did a lot for it. He was an icon. He took Hollywood by the rings and controlled his own destiny. So I like that about McQueen.
We just got to make sure to not wear a sweet turtleneck. Remember, he got jealous of James Garner's turtleneck on Great Escape.
Oh, that's what it was?
Yeah, type in James Garner turtleneck, Great Escape. The dude looks amazing. And so he was annoyed that he didn't get something that looked so good.
Really?
Allegedly, but that's what you hear about that on set.
As I mentioned, we talked about great films, so I said Shogun Assassin and Great Escape. You get a chance, watch The Great Escape. Old film, 60 what? Great Escape was what, 69?
Yeah, 69. I think you're right.
Is it 69?
I was gonna say 65.
Oh, let's just see really quick.
63.
63?
Yeah.
Oh, I was off. 63. But a great action film, great story, But I didn't know about the turtleneck and James Gunn. I have to look that one up. That's interesting about the film.
I'm telling you, just type in James Garner turtleneck Great Escape. The dude,
Okay.
the dude.
Okay. I remember turtleneck was pretty cool in the film, you know.
I mean, no, yeah, you can admit to that. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
But all right, well, this was fun, man. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, no problem, Mark. Anytime, and everybody have a good day, and thanks a lot, man. Thanks for having me, Mark.
All right, so for me, Mark Hoffmeyer, and for Hakeem Robinson, this is Movie Films and Flicks. We'll see you next week.